It's either going to be really good or really bad. What's up, my fellow headbangers? I'm Courtney, aka the Versatile Virgo, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you that don't know me, I run a metal lifestyle website, theversatilevirgo.com, where I focus on the best things in life: music, food, and sometimes fashion. So if that's something that interests you, make sure to check it out. I've linked it in the description below. By the way, I've also linked my Etsy shop in the description below, which is where I just dropped 3 new styles of unisex t-shirts, one of which I'm wearing in today's video. So make sure to check it out if you'd like to help support what I do. My mission is to spread the word about heavy music and all of the wonderful things that come with it. And since I'm completely independent, this shop helps me to continue to do that. Let's be honest, when we see a metal related movie or TV show, it's either going to be really good or really bad. But of course, as a metal girl, I was intrigued by the new Netflix movie called Metal Lords. Tom Morello is the executive producer, and D.B. Weiss, co-creator of Game of Thrones, also wrote and produced this. And I actually thought Metal Lords had a lot to offer. I want you to check it out, so this review isn't going to have any spoilers, but I wanted to give you my perspective on it as a metal girl. In literally the first minute of the series, there is more metal nostalgia and aesthetic, I guess, than there was in the entire series of Hulu's Pam and Tommy. Probably, by the way, I should say the word probably. I never finished watching it. I watched the first 5 episodes, which I binged and I did a review on here on my YouTube channel, and then I watched one more episode and then I just couldn't do it. It was that bad. So already Metal Lords is way off to a better start than that. It opens with 2 of the main characters at band practice. Hunter, who is the guitarist slash vocalist, and he's kind of the die-hard metal fan. And then there is Kevin, who is the drummer, who's kind of just dipping his feet into the metal waters and starting to learn music in general, and playing music specifically. There's this exchange where Hunter wants Kevin to play something really heavy, and Kevin doesn't know what that is yet. And it's just really funny to watch. So immediately I was kind of sucked in because I started caring about the characters, and like I said, it was a pretty funny opening, so I was already kind of open to what this story was going to give me. Eventually we're introduced to Emily, who's like the 3rd main character, and when we're introduced to her, she's actually cussing out her band teacher who's criticizing her clarinet playing. I think it's a clarinet. Kevin sees this and thinks it's pretty metal, but he's not sure, so he has to go back and ask the diehard fan, Hunter, and Hunter kind of blows her off. He actually kind of implies oh, that girl's a little crazy. I don't know about her, but I don't think she's metal. We later find out that Emily is this awesome cello player, and she's really good at playing metal on the cello. I said this kind of already in my review of Metallica's Blacklist album. It's one of those things where it shows how universal metal music actually is. I say this all the time, it never gets the credit that it deserves, but I think when it's shown in a mainstream way like this and people can hear it with other instruments, I think it starts to attract more people to the genre because they start to understand it a little better. So I'm all for it. So that's kind of the 3 main characters of this story, which kind of focuses on this coming of age tale of them trying to get this band together. They want to play a battle of the bands, yet they're not really ready to play yet, and they also need a bass player. There's only 2 members. Kevin wants Emily, the cello girl, to be their bass player, I guess, and Hunter refuses. So that's kind of what the story focuses on, is them trying to basically get this band together. And they keep running out of options because the battle of the bands is getting closer. But of course, they're also kind of dealing with normal teenage stuff too. There's plenty of movies and TV shows about or related to metal that kind of show the scary side of metal, if you will, like Lords of Chaos. Or they just kind of only show one aspect of the lifestyle, like We Summon the Darkness, which I actually really liked, by the way, and I highly recommend. It's not a great movie, but it's pretty good. But rarely do we see these sort of coming of age metalhead tales. So I think stories like this are very reminiscent for some of us of what it was like when we were finding our metal footing through young adulthood. Don't get me wrong, the kids in this story are way more affluent than the kids that I knew and myself growing up, but nevertheless, it's still a relatable story. For example, all three of the main characters are really outsiders, and the people that they're friends with are outsiders, so they really kind of show that dynamic in their school system and just how they're treated at home and things like that. And that was something that I found really relatable, and I think a lot of the people that I was friends with in high school would probably say they related with that too. Although I didn't have very many friends, actually any friends that were super into heavy music like I was the girl blasting Avenged Sevenfold's Nightmare album pulling into the parking lot my senior year, and my friends were along for the ride, so it counts. Soundtrack wise, this movie is awesome. Again, that's another thing that this series kind of blows Hulu's Pam and Tommy out of the water on. Not that those stories are comparable in any way, I guess, except for the fact that they are metal related, and this one had a really awesome soundtrack that had tons of metal in it, and the other one barely had any metal, if any. And the soundtrack for Metal Lords includes some of the biggest metal bands and their most iconic songs. For example, there's a sort of action scene where they play Judas Priest's Painkiller that was really fun. And you'll also hear bands like Metallica and Avenged Sevenfold and many others, and it's very prominent throughout the movie. And there's also a cello cover of War Pigs in here that's really cool. And as far as the set design, wardrobe, and the writing, I was quite impressed with how they did with paying homage to great metal bands and the lifestyle aspect of it. I was really impressed when there was a direct reference to Meshuggah, and then the camera panned to the main character standing in front of a pallbearer wall flag. Two bands that you normally wouldn't see in any type of big production like this, I think. So again, they paid homage to a lot of bands that aren't just the poser bands that would normally be in this production. And I really appreciated that. It seems like when they made this movie, they really paid attention to the fact that metalheads can be very critical, and this was either going to be loved or hated, so you have to do it right if you want it to be loved and for it to be called Metal Lords. And I think in that aspect, they really did do that. Way better than I've seen in probably any other series, I think, at least in recent times that I could compare to. There's actually a scene where Hunter is wearing a Meshuggah, The Violent Sleep of Reason shirt, and I was actually like, hey, I have that shirt. It was technically reconstructed into a dress by my friend Christina over at Creeping Death Designs, a small business I highly recommend checking out. But yeah, I was like super excited to see something that I had too on the screen, and I don't know, I guess I just don't always get those moments in major shows or movies like this, so that was fun for me. At no point did I get that Hollywood is trying to sell out the metal community vibe from this like I did with Pam and Tommy. Again, I'm sorry to keep comparing it. I don't know why all these metal related shows are coming out of the woodwork, but they are, so I just want to compare them, I guess. That's where my mind goes. I'm sure there are going to still be people in the community that say that's what this film does, but I disagree. I think the movie did a really great job at painting metal in a positive light, and not in the way that we're always used to, but in the way that it is for so many of us. That's literally the whole point of my entire platform to begin with. Metal Lords kind of focuses on what this heavy music does for so many of us at a young age, especially while we're trying to navigate young adulthood. It really shows the passion that we have for it, I think, and I, as a fan, really appreciated that Metal Lords accomplished that in this film. Plus, like I said, it seems like they really went out of their way to include merch from bands that aren't the typical poser bands, and I think that's great exposure for the bands that they're showing in this show, because at some point somebody is going to see one of those logos and think, hey, that looks cool, maybe I'll check it out, I like that movie, and maybe they'll actually like the band. So again, I'm all for it. Another thing that I liked was Emily's character struggles with her mental health. I don't think they ever give a diagnosis or anything like that, and I don't think it's needed, but it's brought up as soon as her character is kind of introduced, so this really isn't a spoiler. But there's a scene where she's talking about how she doesn't understand why she's like this, and how she has people in her life that love her, so she shouldn't be like this. And I really appreciated that they kind of showed mental health in that light. A lot of times people that struggle with their mental health are believed to just be either deranged, crazy people, or they must have come from some horrible background, right? And that's not always the case. So I really liked that not only did they not take the traditional route that most Hollywood type films would with metal in general, but they also took the opportunity to kind of show a more realistic aspect of what a mental health struggle looks like for a lot of people. Basically, they didn't use the cliches or stereotypes in this film that people that deal with mental health issues usually get plagued with. And I really appreciated that. By the way, it's also worth noting that Scott Ian, Rob Halford, Tom Morello, and Kirk Hammett all make a cameo in this film, and it's awesome. So if you're a fan of them, it's definitely worth checking out for that, I think. Again, I feel like they knew what metalheads would be hoping for with this, and they delivered. Put Rob Halford in anything, and I'm a happy metal girl. As for things I didn't like, and there's really only just one thing, and it's not really a deal breaker for me on this, but I guess it all can't be positive, and I'm really nitpicking here. Basically, there's a scene, at least the way it came across to me, that the three main characters can't name any female metal musicians other than Joan Jett and Lita Ford, which before anyone even says it, I know someone's gonna say, but they're not metal. That's part of the point in the whole dynamic in this particular scene. And I don't want to give too much away, but basically it's all centering around how still Hunter doesn't want Emily in their band, and he ends it with saying he doesn't think a cello is going to fit into their band. But they try making it like, is it because she's a girl and this and that and blah, blah, blah. But that was one of the things that bothered me, because this is supposed to take place in present day, so I don't know why they couldn't name any other female metal musicians other than Lita Ford and Joan Jett. They're supposed to be a post-death doom band, so I would think that they would have heard of Cammie Beverly of Oceans of Slumber. How about Gina Gleason, the guitarist of Baroness? Diamond Rowe of Tetrarch. I mean, there's a bunch of people I could name here, so I felt it was kind of a missed opportunity. It would have been more funny for Emily, the cello player, to have named some of them, especially since Hunter kind of portrays himself as being the die-hard metalhead who knows everything about metal. But like I said, that's me really nitpicking, and it's not something that is a deal breaker for me. I just thought it could have been done a little bit better, that's all. And to clarify, in regards to the story, I think what they were trying to do was show that they were still getting into metal and they really don't know as much as they think they do. I think that was kind of part of what was trying to be implied. So it makes sense the way it took place in the story, but I'm just proposing another way it could have been done, is all. I said no spoilers, so I won't say how this movie ends, but just know that it's a really awesome, happy metal ending, which kind of solidified what I thought was a really solid film. Overall, I really liked Metal Lords. I watched it by myself, so my husband hasn't had a chance to watch it yet, and I'm probably gonna rewatch it with him because I liked it that much. And I feel like I'm out of things to watch, so if you have any recommendations, please leave me a comment below and let me know. With Metal Lords, it was just like the soundtrack is killer, it's funny, it's lighthearted, so it's a good go-to watch whenever, kind of, I think. There's cameos from the metal gods themselves. I mean, what more could a metal girl ask for? So I definitely recommend checking out Metal Lords on Netflix if you are a metalhead like myself. And if you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel because I have even more heavy music related videos on the way. Thanks for watching this video. Have a great week and stay heavy.